Good afternoon. I'm Dale Chrystie. I'm business fellow and blockchain strategist for FedEx. I bring you greetings from Memphis. We take a truly global view of this topic. I know we're here in the Senate. I respect what we're doing here within the U.S., but for just a few moments, if I could, I'd like to take you up to the International Space Station. We think that's where this topic should start. We go to 220 countries and territories. We go everywhere you can go globally. And at that level, it kind of looks like this. So at that level, there is no FedEx, there is no industry, there are no borders. Data knows no geographic borders. So here we are in Washington trying to work our way through what does this look like? What is this technology? Do I need it? Why? All those kinds of things. Is it about currency? No, it's not. The foundational technology, I spend no time on the currency side. The foundational technology, we believe, is going to completely change worldwide supply chains. Our president, CEO, founder, now executive founder, Fred Smith, was on stage in New York City in early 2018 simply making statements like that. We think it's going to completely change worldwide supply chains. If you're not operating at the edge of innovation or technology, you need to be prepared to be commoditized or potentially to become extinct. Those are pretty bold statements for somebody in that position, and yet he sat there and had these conversations. Shortly after that, our CIO talked about the fact that we think for this to scale, it has to be bigger than us. What that's translated to is that we work as part of BITA, as part of GBBC, with UPS, with others, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, in what I refer to as a coopertition, a pro-competitive coopertition. We think it's going to take all of us to create standards, to create reference architecture, and then we all are in business or doing things to benefit that. We think we have to get these foundational layers out there first. And so we've now spent a number of years, I say the collective we, I think in many cases we've spent a lot of time talking about who, what, and when. So who, FedEx, what, blockchain or Web3, when, we're all trying to figure that out. And I think really what will ultimately scale this is why. So in working with the C-suite, in working with people who are focused at that level, risk and opportunity, fiduciary responsibility, what is it they're trying to accomplish? Chances are it's not a technology discussion, or how cool is a smart contract, or how sexy is peer-to-peer, or all these other hype-related types of things that we've heard for many, 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 many years from that point of view. Why gets us to, again, risk and opportunity. What are the types of things that we can accomplish? If I can have a conversation with a CFO about their accounts receivable, now they're interested. If I walk in and try to teach them about a new technology, not so interested. And so we believe that that's what's going to scale that from that point of view. And so FedEx celebrated our 50th birthday earlier this year. And I would probably, if we had time, I know we're on a quick schedule here, but if I had time and asked you, when you hear FedEx, what do you think about from that point of view? Chances are you're probably going to say, well, they delivered something for me, or they picked it up, or whatever the case may be. It's going to be something around a physical package movement. And that's correct. And I think the first 50 years of FedEx, that's probably a pretty good representation. The next 50 years, I think, is actually on the right-hand side of this slide, which is, in this case, representing a digital twin, a digital representation of that physical package. Once we can digitize these tens of millions of packages that we have and all the others have moving around there, it opens us up to a number of things. And I was having a conversation before we started here, going back literally thousands of years BCE, goods were moved. Trade happened with camels or with a boat on a river or other types of things. And everything to that moment has been a process improvement initiative on that. So we started with clay tablets and wood and papyrus and paper, but we've had bills of lading for 400 or 500 years. And essentially they haven't changed at all. We are finally at the moment, literally at the moment right now in our lifetimes, where we are going to digitize those processes. But it can't be FedEx digitizing them. It can't be UPS or DHL or other examples individually. We can't own that. We have to work together, thus the cooperation reference. Once it is digitized, we can now see a very different world than what we experienced during the pandemic, where nobody could buy paper towels, nobody could buy other things because of how complex the global supply chains are. Once it's digital, Sandra can be a trusted shipper, and when she ships something into the United States, The speed of data is faster than the speed of package. She can simply get it to U.S. Customs. They can recognize that. She's a trusted shipper. That's the happy path. Keep it moving. They don't know me necessarily. They may slow that down. There's a very different world on the horizon here from our point of view. And again, yes, FedEx wants to be in the middle of all that, but we also take a broad view of that. And we want to be one of those at the table that's talking about things like standards and interoperability and digital identity and things like that. So Sandra just mentioned blockchain, IoT, and AI. I actually think blockchain might ultimately be the killer app for AI. Because anybody that talks about that, oh, have you used ChatGPT? Have you done that? Well, be careful now. You don't know where that's coming from. Well, if it had a blockchain connection, you would know the source. Whether that's a good source or a bad source, but you'd know the source. And ultimately, I think these are going to coalesce. And we've been referring to this. I didn't know she was going to mention that. I just happened to have a slide, but we've been talking about it for a couple of years. We refer to it as the trifecta. Any one of these are great technologies. Blockchain's great. IoT is great. AI essentially is just a blender where you used to prepare something by hand, and now you've got a blender to mix it up. It's the same source materials. Blockchain and AI and IoT are very different source materials, right? So IoT is going to give you the pulse of something, temperature, humidity, shock, light, those kinds of things. Blockchain will memorialize that in an immutable fashion. We think there's a ton of things that applies to, including bringing product safely into the United States, U.S. Customs and other many examples from that point of view. So when we talk about this being at this, like the intersection of the physical and digital worlds, the physical world, I think we're familiar with that. So it's, it's pickup, it's at the hub, it's out for delivery, it's those kinds of things. That could be a package or a pizza. We're all well aware of those kinds of things at this point. The digital world is actually more of an MRI. There's multiple layers there from that point of view, and there is a digital version of that, but we also start getting deeper and deeper into chain of custody. Where is it? So that tends to be for cold chain or pharma or things like that from that point of view. IoT, so we know that it's origin, pickup, hub, destination, et cetera. IoT sensors give us a ton more data, a lot more data. But it's not until we get to blockchain that it connects those dots into the story of Sandra. We now know it is an authentic Sandra item. It's an authentic Rolex or Gucci bag or conflict-free diamond or other types of things from that point of view. And so they don't do the same thing, but they are really complementary from that point of view. And we really think that there's a great future ahead as we explore them individually as well as when we start combining them. Digital product passports is another thing that when you start hearing things like circular economy and green economy from that point of view, the EU is working on things like this for deforestation, and in this example for batteries. So in the future, we will want to know where those things are coming from. The provenance, the authenticity, the pedigree that we get from blockchain helps us in this conversation. So where was the battery created? It went into a vehicle. Person A bought the vehicle. Person B bought the vehicle from person A. Ultimately, it is reclaimed or recycled. Digital product passports are going to allow us to follow that all the way through the life cycle of that so that we know where those things are. And it's certainly not limited to this example. FedEx worked with the Health Canada, the Public Health Agency of Canada. They reached out to us and said, we want to find out, are you able to help us prove essentially the provenance of COVID vaccine before we put these shots into our citizens? And we created a use case that involves exactly what we're talking about, which is, yes, we can get that product. We can put a sensor on it. We get the pulse. We can tell you what the temperature range is. It kept it within the range. It did all the things from your point of view. And then we memorialized that, in our case, onto an Ethereum blockchain. They were thrilled with the outcome. We think that's a foundational use case to combine these technologies. And it will likely start in bigger areas, so big pharma or could be aerospace, aircraft parts, various things like that from that point of view. Where you absolutely need to know those things, it's going to start in the higher end things, and then little by little, it will simply be a layer under everything. And so, a 10-year-old today, a newborn today, is going to simply know where the coffee bean came from in the cup of coffee that they're drinking. They're going to want to know where the denim came from. Is it sustainable? Is it organic? Is it this? Is it that? They're going to want to know those things. My sense is by then, ESG will be a thing from a corporate point of view. And if it's at a corporate point of view, then it's also going to be at a personal point of view. So whether you end up with a personal sustainability score, You know, what is Sandra's? Oh, hers is 82, mine's 68. Well, who do you purchase from? How does that work? This gives us objective data underneath many of those layers from that point of view. And we think in order to make that happen, that's where we are connected to GBBC. So the Blockchain and Transport Alliance, we are founding members back to 2017. UPS is also a founding member. We are working as co-chairs on the GSMI initiative in the supply chain area, which we're just about to finalize at this point. And we're focused on open source and royalty-free harmonized standards in global commerce. And everything in our life has something to do with standards, whether that's traffic lights or the electricity or anything. This is going to be no different. However, the challenge is, and I'm going to go back to my word cooperation for a second, the challenge is most of the time you get entities that are saying, I want to beat that person, I want to beat that entity to something. And a lot of people treated blockchain like the internet and said, let's just get rich quick. And from our point of view, that 220 country and territory perspective allows us to really pull back and say, wait a second, it's going to take everybody. So look to your left, look to your right in this room. It doesn't matter which party in this country, it doesn't matter what company, whether you're competitors or not. Ultimately, we think that there's a value layer that sits underneath that. And so the way I would describe it is, am I a competitor, yes or no? Yes. Okay, well, it's UPS and FedEx, whatever the case may be. But we also differentiate. The piece that, and we tend to stop right there at this binary discussion. The piece that we're missing, I think, is the core of this whole discussion, which is there's value creation in answering the question, where can we agree? Where do we agree? Well, FedEx, UPS, DHL, if we can reduce friction across borders, that's paper, that's delays, that's resources, there's many other examples of this, we all win. Every one of us wins. So it's not about me winning or beating somebody or somebody else. Of course, we're in business to do things from that point of view, but we see this as a foundational layer that needs to be built first, and then we can all look at it on a more proprietary basis from that point of view. And so I'll finish with this slide, which is, cooperation is a word that was used for the first time in 1911. This will not be on the test, I promise. It was in reference to an oyster company from the East Coast, from the Boston area, Cape Cod area, that they developed this kind of a 5-gallon pail that had an inner area with oysters in it and ice around it, and then it was sealed. Well, they were incredibly successful. They shipped it all the way to Canada, to the west coast of the United States, to Cuba. And basically, the owner of that put the message out to the people in the same city, look, when you're selling this, you are not competitors, you're actually in a cooperation. Your competitor is the person in the wooden bucket selling oysters out of that. But while you're here, you're actually working to the good of both from that point of view. We've seen that happen back to the mid-1800s with railroad track width. With other things around schedules. You don't want two trains coming at each other. I mean, there's lots and lots of these things in our life that we don't really think about, but it's not new. Airline industry, auto industry in the early 1900s, same thing. You don't want two planes land at the same time. You want communications from that point of view. But we've only seen one global technology to date, and it's the internet. Well, the internet the standards were created by a really small number of scientists and engineers, TCP/IP, HTTP, those kinds of things that we all take for granted. In this case, this technology got out, and the world is out here trying to figure it out and use it from that point of view. We think in this case, for it to scale, and it will scale, it's going to take you, look to your left, look to your right, it's going to take every one of us here, it's going to take every one of us out here, and on that broader picture of the globe. And with that, I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.